Well, happy Independence Day from Civically Minded. On today's episode of The Right Wing, I want to discuss what's been a pretty monumental week in the land of geopolitics. Big elections coming up in France and England, respectively. And of course, we've got to discuss that first presidential debate, as well as a lot of Supreme Court decisions that have been dropping. And I want to remind us at the end of today's episode that there is a final judgment coming from the perfect, righteous judge, Jesus Christ. And because he will make all things right, it's okay if sometimes we fallen human beings don't get every judgment right here on earth. All of that's coming up today on The Right Wing from Civically Minded. And oh, yeah, after you're done watching, get out there, go to a parade, watch some fireworks, enjoy your family and your freedom. Happy 4th of July. Well, welcome back to The Right Wing on Civically Minded. I'm your host, Corey Wing. Well, I got to say, it's nice to be back home and back in my studio so I can bring you this episode of The Right Wing. Last week has been a rather earth shattering one in the world of geopolitics. And I was out of town on a little bit of vacation with my family, so I was itching to get back and produce this video for you guys. France and England are both facing major elections this week, and much to the amazement of the globalist elites, both nations are showing huge gains for a more populist and nationalistic candidate. In France, Marie Le Pen and in England, Nigel Farage, respectively, are winning over large swaths of their populations to their causes. Now, we should be in prayer for our European brothers and friends. Closer to home, the last week has seen a presidential debate that could not have gone more poorly for the incumbent Joe Biden. And now it has many mainstream media talking heads and even Democrat politicians asking some rather difficult questions about what to do moving forward. Should President Biden continue to be the Democrat nominee this November? Or perhaps not. Far beyond the usual back and forth of political debates, we really did get some deep insights into, well, who would be the better leader of the free world moving forward.
But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag.
All joking aside, there are substantive differences between the two men and their political platforms. And at this point, because both will have served as president for 4 years, we really can vote on substance and on record. The Democrats and Joe Biden as their masthead have promised, if reelected, to codify Roe as national law. They're pulling out all the stops for abortion on demand, including up to infanticide. They've weaponized the DOJ against their political opponents, whether that's former President Donald Trump or Christians protesting outside of abortion mills. And they're also for unfettered immigration and open borders. This has been exhibited, of course, over the last 3.5 years, with 12 plus million illegal immigrants pouring over our southern border. We cannot sustain this level of invasion. And make no mistake, it absolutely is an invasion. Well, just ask France and England. Why do you think their political landscapes are changing so quickly and so dramatically? Back in May, I made a video on why nationalism is, in my opinion, the correct form of social structure and why it is growing in popularity all over the Western world. You can click here if you're interested in watching that video. Now, under Joe Biden, crime is higher everywhere since he came into office, as is the cost of living. Groceries are up 20% since 2021, according to CNBC. Gas prices are up 29%, and home prices are up a whopping 31.4%, making home ownership almost something that younger generations think of as a fantasy. Economically, the average American can barely afford their everyday expenses. Forbes magazine, in a 2023 survey, found that 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, Donald Trump started zero new wars while he was in office. And under President Biden, well, the world's in chaos. His dangerous and costly and, well, downright embarrassing withdrawal from Afghanistan strengthened the Taliban, our enemies. And they got American servicemen killed. Now, we've been in a proxy war against Russia now for over 2 years with Ukraine, and it has cost us nearly $80 billion as well. And now we're, of course, embroiled in the Israeli Palestinian conflict, too. All of these are more than valid reasons to want to see a change in Washington, D.C. come November. However, possibly the most important legacy that any president can leave is their fingerprint on actual legislation. And that's tough to do for the executive branch because they don't make law. So, the most effective way to accomplish this is by the nomination and confirmation of Supreme Court justices. It is here that former President Donald Trump excelled. During his term, he delivered on his campaign promise to give us conservative, originalist justices. A president, of course, serves 4, or if he's lucky, a maximum of 8 years. But remember that Roe was the law of the land for 50 years. Now that is playing by the long game. And if we're being honest, we must admit that the left has been kicking our butts at understanding and playing the long game. So, when I look at this last week and the decisions that were coming from SCOTUS, and I see that most have been conservative, it's a striking reminder that this is a major battleground which is vital that we win. Cases now limiting the power of federal agencies and unelected bureaucracy under the Chevron overturning, or the overturning of the obstruction charges on many of the January 6th suspects, saying Trump cannot be removed from ballots all over the country. These were all big wins. The 9-0 decision to continue allowing the abortion pill to be distributed nationally, well, that's a disappointing loss, especially considering that over 56% of all U.S. abortions are performed by medical pill distribution now. And that's according to the CDC. It's the decision to grant partial immunity, however, for former presidents that I find interesting. And if I'm being honest, I'm still wrestling with my own personal feelings on the topic altogether. Of course, this decision will undoubtedly solve some of former President Trump's legal headaches, but it also grants blanket style immunity to President Biden or any other future president moving forward. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Equal justice under the law is supposed to be a bedrock protection that we celebrate here in the United States. But unborn children haven't enjoyed that protection for decades now. So I suppose we can't be that gung ho about it. All these legal battles do, however, remind me of something even more essential than the importance of good law and the importance of good governance, both of which are important. And that's the fact that we don't have to get all judgments perfectly right here on earth. Nor can we, of course, because of our sinful condition and the imperfect decision making that we apply. But the hope that we have as Christians is that one day all mankind will, as scripture tells us, stand before the true and righteous judge of the universe. And he will dispense real, lasting judgment on all peoples. Revelation chapter 20, verses 12 to 15 tells us, "And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works, by the things which were written in the books. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each according to their own works. Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire, and this is the second death. And anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire." That's really the important stuff of life, of course. And it's that final judgment that gives me hope. So come November, please go perform your civic duty and go vote. It's vital. It's important that you do. Get involved in local, statewide, and national politics if you can. Demand more transparency from your elected officials and vote in men and women that will honor God with their lives and with their offices. But know that at the end of all things, you, me, and everyone else will stand before a thrice holy God, and either you will pay for your cosmic treason against God by bearing his wrath for all eternity, or you will have your guilt shouldered by the immaculate and righteous Son of God, Jesus Christ, who lived and died and became the substitute for each of his own, so that they may stand robed in his spotless righteousness. If you haven't done business with him, well, then the rest of this is just dress rehearsal. Thanks for watching. For the right wing, from Civically Minded, I'm Corey Wing. Until next time.